Guys, it's Friday afternoon. We're pretty punchy at this point, so hope you're all ready for it
Right. Try to keep it light and entertaining.
as much as possible. Okay, I feel like we've got quite a few folks on, so we can go ahead and start with introductions. Shannon, if you want to start with the introduction, then I'll do a quick intro, and then we can get started.
Sure. Welcome and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I'm Shannon McCarty. I'm the Vice President of Learning and Instruction at Calbright College.
And hello, everyone. I am Mara Woody. I am the Director for Strategic Partnerships at Ripen. I'll talk more about what Ripen is. But before coming here, I've worked in education for 20 years at both public and private institutions. I was the Assistant Commissioner for Post-Secondary Policy for the state of Missouri. And then I've also worked for a foundation working at the intersection of workforce development and community colleges. So been around in the space for a long time and very passionate about how we serve our learners and how we do that really effectively in education. So I'll go ahead and start. Really fast before we start the presentation, wanted to make sure everyone know if you're in our breakout room, you scroll down to the bottom. Right here is our PowerPoint if you want to be able to download that and have it for a reference later. And so then we'll go ahead and get started. Just by way of quick introduction to what this is Ripen, which is an experiential learning company, and Calbright College partnered. Was it about 2 years ago, Shannon, that we started this partnership? It's
Yes.
been a minute. It's
Yes.
been a minute, yeah. To really think about how do we build high quality programs for learners that really get them in touch with the knowledge and skills that they need for the workforce today. And so this really ties very importantly into the measurement of those skills for the workforce and how we do that. And so what this presentation is going to be about is really SLOs, how we think about it, how we make sure that we're measuring those, and the importance of students showing and doing their knowledge and skill development, not just maybe indicating through assessment tests or something like that. And so it's really this opportunity for the authentic assessment of what students are learning. And so, okay. I'll let Shannon go ahead and talk a little bit about kind of what the high level is of this, and then we'll kind of keep going through the rest of the presentation.
Yeah, wonderful. So Mara's going to give us an overview just about the current landscape and I guess what we are facing in higher ed, specifically related to career readiness and job opportunities and work-based learning. And so you'll get to learn a lot more about Ripen. Then we'll cover kind of our career bridge, which was a recent pilot between Calbright and Ripen, and talk a little bit about the success of that. And then I'm going to dive a little bit into assessment and even thinking about project-based learning opportunities. What does it look like? How do you build them? How do you engage employers? And then Mara's going to continue on and talk more about what Ripen does and how that they interact with employers, get them involved, get their feedback, and then some key takeaways that we hope you will take with you as you leave us for the day. All right, so Calbright College. This is California's fully online COMSI-based community college. We actually serve 57 out of 58 counties, close to about 7,000 students currently. And we're really focused on removing barriers for working learners. And so particularly those who have been underserved or left out of traditional higher education, caregivers, and underemployed Californians. And so we provide tuition-free, very flexible, and job-aligned programs. So one of the other things I think that we are most proud of is making sure that we find opportunities to connect students with employers so that they can gain and again, as Mara mentioned earlier, demonstrate skills. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that gives you a high level of who we are at Calbright.
And then really quickly, what Ripen is we are a project-based experiential learning company. And what kind of sets our model apart is a little bit different from other project-based experiential learning companies is we are embedded with employers. And so students are working with employers to complete these projects, which give them opportunities to get feedback from employers, to learn more about workplace culture, oftentimes to build their social capital and their professional networks. And so just an authentic opportunity for learners to really take what they're learning in the classroom and start to learn the application of for the mastery of those skills. Our mission is to eliminate underemployment, and we actually got our start 10 years ago with some college, well, 15 years ago now, with some college students who were in a business class. They got to work with an employer and they thought it was an incredible project opportunity to work directly with an employer while they were still in school. And they really felt every student should have access to those opportunities. And so that really is where Ripen came from, was college students who saw the benefit of that in their own student journey. And so I'll kind of skip this slide. It's in the PowerPoint, but we got our start in Canada. That's where the students were located. Dave and Dana are their names. They're in Vancouver, Canada, and we work in both primarily the Canada and the United States right now. And so what we're going to talk about next, and oh, I was going to say, if anyone has any chat items, throw in the chat at any point, any questions. Also, feel free to just unmute and ask questions as we're going through this presentation. We really want this, it's a Friday afternoon, and so we really want this to be interactive and not boring and sluggish. So let's have a conversation and jump in anytime you want. And so it's important as we talk about the different programs we're developing to support learners for us to really discuss that landscape that we're all working through right now. We know that there is a lot of media presence around that perception of higher education and the ROI of education. And so we're all under immense pressure to really show and prove what it is students are learning from us, but then to also make sure that students are prepared to thrive once they complete that student journey. And this is not easy work, I'm going to say. And so to kind of see a little bit of what the context is and we're working in right now is that we know that institutional selectivity matters in student outcomes. We know that students who graduate from more selective institutions are less likely to be underemployed and they're more likely to have higher paying jobs throughout their lifetime than students who come from less selective institutions. And so it's really important that we think about how do we make sure that all institutions are provided with the resources they need to serve their learners well. We also, through the data, and this is where the SLO measurement comes in really important, is when programs are good at any institution, programs are good. They can change learner outcomes. But it's really important that when these programs are developed, we know what we want the students to be able to master and we measure for that. So that way, if we see that they're not mastering what we want them to, we can start making those tweaks in the curriculum and really make sure that students are learning what we want them to. Calbright College is right now a non-degree credential college. And so we have some measurements there that non-degree credentials can really actually make a difference. Just as degree programs, bachelor degrees, we know that statistic that a learner is more likely to earn $2 million more over their lifetime if they have a bachelor degree versus they don't. But we also find that any type of program in college, you're more likely to earn more than if you did not attend post-secondary education. And it's not all about the career. We all know that. But what it does do is having that career, having the job you love, signals other indicators. It means that you're able to first provide for your family, but then also if you have a good job, you're more likely to have health care. If you have a good job that pays the bills, then you're more likely to be able to contribute to your communities around you. And so it's all interwoven together, this importance of being able to have that financial stability to be able to do the other things in life that we all consider really important. And so, as we talk about great quality credential programs and degree programs and making sure students have those opportunities to master what they're learning and prove that mastery, we know work-based learning is a really powerful means of doing that. And it also provides a natural ability to be able to assess what they're doing because learners are completing projects, and then those projects become those opportunities for assessment. And so then what is happening also in the world right now, as we all know this painfully, is there's just not enough opportunity for our learners. And the reason there's several different types of bottlenecks. The first are bottlenecks on employer side. Many employers do not engage in internships, apprenticeships, co-ops, externships, any of those for two reasons primarily. One is there's too many barriers for them to participate. Two, they don't see enough value in what's being done for them to make the effort to participate. And so it's really key as we think about building experiential learning programs. What is it that will engage employers and simplify the process for them? I say a lot of times, a lot of these programs, people have to do the paperwork to do the work. And we want to eliminate the paperwork so people can actually do the work of humaning, developing the skills, assessing, having real conversations, coaching, and mentoring. And so that's work that we do at Ripen is really how do we support both our educational partners and our employers, and we take care of the paperwork so they can do the important work. But even once you get past that employer bottleneck, then we also have the barriers that our students live with every day of their lives. Traditional internship and apprenticeship models may require students to be physically at a location. And if there are childcare or transportation issues, that makes it really hard. We have many students today that are working survival jobs who are not able to quit that survival job to participate in a traditional internship opportunity. And so making sure that we offer programs in experiential learning that is diverse enough to meet the needs of all the different learners on our campuses and be able to measure for all of those. And so our model, one of our primary models that we work is we actually embed our projects within curriculum. That means faculty get to be at the forefront of making sure students are learning what they need to learn. That means there's that authentic assessment opportunity. That means that the projects are well tied to the curriculum and that the faculty are really able to help support learners in making sure they're learning what they need to be successful in those programs. And so then also, we know that there are a lot of benefits for employers that participate in work-based learning because then they have access to learners and they have access to that coaching, the mentoring, to helping to give them the information learners need to be successful in today's world. Many times we have learners who are very early in their career and can benefit by that coaching and mentorship opportunity. It's also our country, 99% of our businesses in the United States are small and medium. And so this gets them out in front of students. So that way they have that opportunity for students to know they exist and know that they are a great job opportunity come for them. And so, further, what's really important here is the benefit to the learner for work-based learning. Again, they have those opportunities to build those skills, to have that chance to then show the mastery of the skill, reflect on what the skill and knowledge is that they've learned, to be able to then articulate that in a meaningful way to employers, to be able to work and build those professional networks with employers, and to really just gain more confidence. And that's something we hear quite a bit from learners is that lack of confidence when they start in the job market. And so just really to have that confidence that they can do this. And so there's benefits for everyone all around, but it has to be constructed well, which is why Calbright College is such an incredible partner for us because they were very thoughtful and very intentional at the onset of how do we make sure that we know our students are learning what we want them to learn. And so I'll kick it over to Shannon, who will be able to talk a little bit more about the specific Career Bridge program and how they developed that, how they're measuring the student learning, and how they're really thinking about how that plays into a learner's future and what that means for that learner being able to secure those jobs into the future. So I'll kick it over to Shannon.
Thank you. Yes. And so at CalBridge or Calbright, we actually do have the opportunity now to have integrated projects across our programs. And a lot of those are optional. And we wanted to take this one step further and create paid opportunities. And so we were able to pull together some funds and identify $75,000 that we could contribute to students. So we were able to take 75 participants. Each participant received $1,000 for these paid micro internships, and they were aligned to the program of study. So we actually created these opportunities and invited our alumni to participate. And this was for our cybersecurity, project management, data analysis, and some of our HR programs. And we had a great response rate. We were able to get all 75 students through these paid opportunities. And so we were able to directly connect our students with employers through the Ripen platform. And so some of the things that I love to highlight is, it really allowed students to have teamwork. So these were done in a collective group, so groups of 5 or up to 10 students at a time with these projects. These were 100% virtual and all California-based businesses. So these were opportunities for all students to participate, no matter where they were located. And also, not only did we encourage them to work on their technical skills, we also did a little bit above and beyond and had them foster their durable skills. So having students think about, what did they really want to gain from this opportunity, from effective communication to professionalism to critical thinking, and then if they were able to gain that during the process. So next slide, please. So, and as I stated, we were able to get all 75 students through, and we actually have our impact report on this. And some of the things that I wanted to highlight that I think that matters most is what we heard from employers. And some of the highest rankings that we actually heard back about our students was based on their professionalism, their collaboration, their critical thinking, and their creativity. And we know how important that is when employers are looking to hire as well as to retain employees. So these students are engaging in these projects and really able to practice these skills and have those skills validated by actual employers, which I think speaks volumes. And I would say our students, we got great feedback from our students as well. They really loved this experience. One of the quotes that we recently got from the impact report was, one of the best parts of the program was learning how to collaborate with a real client. It gave me a much deeper understanding of what it's like to balance technical analysis and professional communication, timelines, and expectations. I now feel confident presenting security findings, offering solutions, and navigating real-world challenges like limited access or scope changes. So we know that authentic learning is so valuable to adult learners. And really that virtual engagement, as I mentioned, allowed additional access and opportunity for our alumni. We are located through the state of California, so for them to all be able to participate is really valuable. And one of the things that is really important to CBE is the demonstration of skills. And so we know that the students are not only able to know skills in theory, but now they're actually applying it in a real world setting. And so for us, that's really the underlying core and the success of this project. So one of the things that I want to double down on is, and could you go to the next slide? Thank you, Mara, is really the idea of this skill tagging. So one of the things that we do just innately as part of our programs is we are very thoughtful on the front end and we do a deep dive into labor market analysis, pulling Lightcast data, and really thinking about what are the skills that are in demand, both technical and durable, for these programs of study. And then all of our curriculum then is aligned very closely to those skills. And then as we actually build out our programs, we make sure that all of those skills, the identifying behavioral indicators are all tagged to the pre-assessments. So students come into our programs, do a pre-assessment, and they identify what they know, areas where they need to improve, or if there are gaps in that information. Those are actually then tied to formative and content practice. So students not only have identified that on the front end, and maybe a student has strong knowledge, then they're able to go straight to demonstrating what those skills and understandings are. Or if they need additional practice, then those opportunities are also highlighted for students and they can engage with that content along the way. And one of the things that I really want to point out is that those skills then are visible to students. And so as students are gaining these skills, they can actually see them through their program and see what specific skills that they are leveraging and learning within that program.
I do
So
want to pause here for 1 second because this was really important that life cycle of the skill development and going through. And are there any questions or any comments or anyone want to dig into that? Because I feel like this is a really important area that folks might really be interested in knowing a bit more about or have questions regarding.
Actually, I'm not sure where to start. There was like a big jump for me between the blue and the orange. So, how does the curriculum play out? Are students very clear on how much time or coursework or semesters are required? And do they do separate micro modules? How does that play out? If you could elaborate, please.
sure. So all of our current programs are short-term, non-credit programs. So they're about a year or less. And students are placed in the program, so not courses. And it is a forward assessment forward or direct assessment model. So as students do the pre-assessment, they're aligned to modules, which are aligned to the larger competencies. And then each of those competencies kind of have the underlying skills that will help students gain that competency. And so it is very modularized or module-based learning opportunities for students. And so each of the modules then has an aligned pre-assessment. So the pre-assessment is not for the entire program. That pre-assessment is for that very specific module. And then within that module, we are releasing the appropriate content aligned to the skills from the pre-assessment. And it really depends on how students do on that pre-assessment as to which formative and content assignments then are kind of visualized for them so that they can go on and work on those.
Thank you.
Sure. Great question. Thank you.
And do we have any other questions before we move on?
I've got one other question. Is it the instructor who conducts the assessment, or is it in partnership with the company that the student may be interning at?
It's in partnership with the company. So any of the Ripen projects, and specifically CareerBridge, it was in partnership. So one of the things I would say is a very strong ability for Ripen is that they're able to help the employer kind of understand and think about, what are the things that you have going on at work that it would really be useful to have students do that would demonstrate knowledge and skills. And then we also, as kind of like the faculty member and the institution, are saying, here are the things that we believe will demonstrate those skills. And then the employers can look at that assessment and kind of make sure that that's a strong match. So it is made in collaboration because it needs to be beneficial to the employer, what the students are doing. But then also we need to ensure that it matches how we are validating learning and that aligns to our program outcomes.
And
But
Karen,
Mara, if you want to add, please.
yeah, I was gonna say, and what I'll add, Karen, also is that sounds extremely labor intensive and like a ton of paperwork. So we provide a lot of services with our educational partners, but we also have a platform that streamlines that communication. And so the platform becomes the location where faculty and employers are able to speak, where students and employers work together, because we want to be very careful to make sure that what's happening between students and employers is known, and that if there are benchmarks or milestones that we know those are happening and can be measured against along the way. And so a lot of that is managed through our platform. And later on in the presentation, I have some different screenshots that show just how we collect that data and feedback from employers. And I don't have a pretty dashboard, but we do actually a picture of a pretty dashboard, but we do have dashboards for our educators for them to be able to see what's happening, and it measures what they want. And so it really is kind of customized per our educational partners' needs. Okay. Any other questions?
No, I think that's great. And it really kind of dovetails right directly into this next slide, which is really thinking about transparency. And I think to your point, Karen, it's, how do the students know what they need to learn? What are we providing to them? And then what also are we providing for the employer? And so, like I mentioned before, all those skills that are tagged then are transparent and visible to students. And then also is a very clear understanding of what are the behavioral indicators. So what is it that I have to know, show, and do to indicate that I have acquired or mastered that skill. And then as we have students doing this, we're really having them collect their artifacts so they can actually build a portfolio to show what they're able to do as they move through the program. And so one of the things that's kind of the quick tip that's on here is really this skill tagging really helps us transform away from grades because we're CBE model, but really to evidence of growth and which can create a wonderful living resume for the student. And it's all artifacts of learning. So not just a transcript that talks about, very high level, but something that is really nuanced and very specific to what students are capable of doing and have accomplished in their program. All right, next slide. So, oh, go ahead.
I feel like I skipped one. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I skipped several. Okay, there we go.
I was like, okay. Like we're rolling with it. It's Friday. So, all right. So, as we think about evidence-based assessments and really thinking about how to design them, we always like to think of like what is the end in mind? And some of this can be in collaboration or a conversation with an employer. But what is it that the student needs to show as an artifact to demonstrate skills and knowledge? And then working backwards from there. And ideally, these are real-world challenges. They integrate durable skills. So, it's not just technical skills, but how do I effectively communicate those technical skills? And again, we always want to match them back to Lightcast job data because we really want to make sure that these are current, relevant skills that students are gaining that will help them when they get into the workforce. And then we are evaluating and validating that students have acquired these skills. So all of our projects do have very clear skill-based rubrics as well that align to those. We actually engaged through the process with CareerBridge as having students reflect on and do surveys as to how they felt they were gaining, what skills they were gaining, both technical and durable throughout this process. So they kind of did an early assessment of where they were, and then as they finished the project, the gains that they felt that they had acquired. And then one of the things that I think is most valuable for me is the employer feedback. So it's really external validation of what our programs, how they're designed, how they're leveraged, how they're provided to students, and are we really getting students what they need so when they leave on the other side. And so, we're able to take that feedback and inform and improve or iterate on our programs and our assessments through that process. And as a CBE model, one of the things I also really value is the ability to have resubmissions. So it's not a one and done, it's not a grade, it's a failure. You might not be there yet, but how can we help you get there? And so students are able to resubmit assignments, and that's actually built into the assessment as well. And then the last slide from me, and then I'm going to hand it back over to Mara, but it is really this co-designing. And so it was really co-creating with real organizational needs. So as Mara mentioned, there's kind of this partnership between Ripen, the employer, and the institution, and it's having a conversation. What is it that you need? What are the projects that would demonstrate skills for our students? And then how do we match those? So students aren't coming in and creating a project that they're not prepared for, because we want them to feel prepared and confident and able and capable to do these. So that's kind of an important part of the conversation. And there are very clear feedback loops from the students, from the employer. So that way, if you do have to make any adjustments or modify, that is all part of the process. And then Ripen provides really strong coaches that are nudging, helping students keep them on track. So that wasn't on the institution either. And then again, all of this, and it's Mara's going to show you what it looks like on the Ripen side. Students are seeing the like hashtag skills in their programs, and then as they complete the projects and Ripen, they're also able to see those skills. And so, Mara, I'm going to hand it back over to you so you can show what it looks like in the real world.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so to kind of talk, and I just got to notice my internet connection is unstable. So if I disappear for a minute, I promise I'll be back. Um, Perfect timing on a Friday afternoon while doing a virtual presentation. And so as Shannon was talking about that life cycle, what we specifically do within our platform is we facilitate all of that. Even the back and forth between a faculty person and employer is facilitated through our platform. Also, what we have in here is as faculty are building those experiences that they want and employers are building those projects, they have the opportunity for the life cast skills to be tagged to the projects and experiences at the very beginning. So that way it's understood what are the things that we are trying to achieve. And so you'll see that down here we have the categories, but then we also have the skills that are being attached to the projects. And then there's all kinds of different assessments that we set up for both employers or students and employers, learners and employers. And so I just kind of put in here some different examples. They're surveys because they're distributed and they come out. And so this is an example of just different ones that we have. Some of them are for our learners and some of them are for employers. Specifically with Career Bridge, I believe that they're called participants. Is that right, Shannon? Yes, and so this we can actually white label this to use the nomenclature of our educational partners, so that way it makes sense within the context of their programming. The definitions stay the same, so that people aren't trying to figure out what is a learner here, what is a participant there. But then also something that's really important that we know in assessment is that opportunity for learner self-reflection. So we have surveys that'll go to employers to measure, and we can customize those to whatever our education partners want our employers to measure. But then we also that importance for learner self-reflection. And so you can do the pre-post tests. There is the ability to do milestone and benchmark measurement throughout, as well as the actual artifacts of what they're creating for assessment. And so you have this opportunity to cushion both that intentional reflectional thought process along with the actual deliverables that students, the artifacts that students are creating. And so then this is just an example. This one shows all numerical, but we can set up the surveys to be text, numerical, Likert scale, really anything SurveyMonkey can do. That's how we can assess learners and employers and collect their feedback. This is one of those ugly, this is not what our dashboards look like. This is a report that I pulled from a dashboard, but we have dashboards that really show just kind of what's happening and measures for what our educational partners are looking for. And then also what's really important is if you have certifications or any other type of recognition or badges that you want your learners to receive, we can actually, we integrate with Credly, and so you're able to set those up. This is a student who actually posted this exact certificate on LinkedIn. And so learners have the ability to post their certifications and show the skills that they've developed. And you see down here, it has it actually tagged down here. So that way they're able to highlight that. And then also the employers will survey those, and it's the same for them. You can see down here, you can have multiple choice, we can have free text, Likert scales, whatever it is that rubrics, whatever it is that you're wanting for employers to give that assessment and give that feedback and evaluation, we can set that up in the system to facilitate. And then this is just another different example of different types of questions that we have. I do, before we get into key takeaways, I'm going to take a crazy risk here. I do want to show, because I think this is really important to connect this for learners. Can you guys see this Kathleen Ginches right here? Yeah.
Yes.
So this is an example. Everyone
While I
that
was
participates
doing it,
in Ripen projects, they get this learner
starting that.
experience portfolio for the rest of their life. Basically, they don't have to stay with the school to get this. It stays with them for as long as they want it, and they can actually make it public. So as they're applying for jobs or talking about their experience, they do have this as a resource. Why that's important, if you look at this, so this tells us a little bit about Kathleen. She can put her resume in there as well, but then it also starts showing all those skills that she started working on through her projects. And so you can see she had one project in communication, two in social media, two in marketing. But it also gives her feedback that she received from employers. And if we go in here and click these stars, whatever you create as that formal kind of evaluation, you can actually see here that becomes public if she wants it to become public. Sorry, let me back this up a little bit. And then the final thing that I think is really the most significant for our employers is that it also allows them to highlight the projects they worked on. As we talk about what you know, and those theoretical questions come up, how would you handle blah, blah, blah situation in an interview? Well, learners now, they have the empowerment of the projects they've worked on. They said, well, I did solve that problem in this project, and let me tell you a little bit more about that. And so this helps give them that advantage they need to really think through, okay, how did I do that? What did I do? This isn't theoretical and I would, this is an I did. And so it's really a great benefit to learners to have access to this and then be able to show it to their employers, because you can actually go in here and you can see what this project was. You can see details of what they completed, the objective. This is an older one, but it really gives them that ability to highlight what they've been able to do. And I just wanted to show that that was important, that that's part of that closing that loop. Like we can measure what students are doing, but if they don't understand and it's not part of a cohesive message to them, then we're kind of missing an opportunity for our learners to really be able to highlight that and take advantage of that as they're thinking about what's next after their career journey. And so I want to pause here. We have some key takeaways. It's really around the idea that every student body is different. And so every program needs to be different to meet the needs of their learners. It's really critical that these programs, when they're being developed, it's that designing backward type model that everyone talks about, and I'm pretty sure it's cliche at this point, but we still say it. But it's really thinking about what is it we want our learners to know, and how do we then give them the opportunity to learn it, demonstrate it, and master it. And so really being thoughtful and intentional in how we design these programs to make sure that the learners are able to articulate the learning after we know that they've mastered what we need them to master. And so I'm going to pause here because I feel like we went through that really quickly. Are there any questions, any comments? And if folks are interested, we can open this up for conversation and discussion. Or if folks are like, it's kind of the end of the day, I'm done. We're open to whatever folks want to do, but I'll open it up for questions or comments to start. I know.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I was curious with the portfolio that students have at the completion of their internship, how long is that portfolio available to them?
For the rest of their lives. And I shouldn't even say the rest of their lives because it will outlast them. It's available for as long as they want it.
Mm. So
And is
who pays for it? I'm sorry.
Right? That's what I thought about also. Right now, Ripen does. It's just part
Oh,
of the services that we provide.
oh, so it's included in the tuition.
It's included when we work with our educational partners, it's just included in that cost of the programming.
Sure.
But the cost to maintain it, there isn't an ongoing cost to institutions for us to maintain their learner experience portfolios,
Right, right.
if that makes
Sorry, there
sense.
was someone else.
I have a question. You were showing the portfolio. Was it on the Credly platform or was it on a different platform?
I'll pull this one back in. This is actually our platform. The Credly platform is separate. We do within our platform, we have achievements, and so we can put down achievements. And if you have achievements you want students to earn that we put in our learner experience portfolio, we do. But then also, if there are things that you want to be credentialed through Credly, then we also do that integration with Credly so they can get those Credly badges. We also, it's very important to us. We know that a ripen completion certificate doesn't hold value in the job market. In what I'm saying, like if you have some sort of credential by a school, that affirms that's very different than completion by ripen. And so while we have these project participant completions that we have, we really, if our partners want to have additional badging or certifications or credentials that they put in here, we really believe in the power of that as a signal to the labor market of the educational experience and the journey of that learner through their education provider. I hope that made sense.
Mara, I do have a follow-up question sort of on the, but from the perspective of the data management, right? The portfolios, it just looks so cool, of course, everything's there. The question is, okay, how do we kind of like sift through it, right? In a sense that, do you actually test this with employers or do students have opportunities to showcase this? Because again, when I apply for a job, there are specific things I need to apply, put on my resume. And if I put a link to this database, even with appropriate passwords and whatnot, who's going to get, like access this to actually, so if you could please elaborate on this.
The link is public, but students have to share it. And what I say a lot of times is this would be, while it can be used as part of just the application process, this is really its most powerful during that interview process when students get the chance to highlight the skills, the experience. But students do have the option to make it public or not public, and so they can make it unpublic if they want to. But yeah, this is all that's in there. It doesn't contain anything additional. And the data security question is a big one. And so we actually collect minimal information regarding our students within our platform. So there isn't an opportunity for then there to be that concern with anything related to FERPA. Her profile, this is what she's added in, but again, that's up to the student to decide if they want to have that much information about themselves in this platform. Hope that helps. And we can talk more about it too. I can get you in touch with our CTO. He would love to talk about this. So this is a question. I'm going to defer a little bit to Shannon on this one too, and then we can answer it as well. A question in the chat. Do you connect students studying? Let me take off the share so that way we can all see each other. Do you connect students studying healthcare with opportunities, nursing, social work, or are the partnerships more related to business? Shannon, do you want to talk about in the context of Career Bridge, and then I can talk about it more globally?
Yeah, absolutely. So for Career Bridge, we kind of focused on where we had a lot of alumni. And so we did focus more primarily on our business programs, although we also added in cybersecurity. But we are integrating Ripen, and these are kind of like the academic opportunities that are integrated within programs that are unpaid. We are integrating those across programs. So we are looking to see if we can add those to our community health worker program that recently launched as well. And these are more of opportunities that we highlight highlight for students and communicate for students, but they are not like mandatory. If they do complete the Ripen project, it does then equate to like a summative assessment. So it could be an equivalent to that, but those are unpaid opportunities. And so we try to create some flexibility around those. But Mara, I'm sure you guys are able to speak to what other areas.
Yeah, for the projects that we work with, it's probably easier to talk about the projects we don't work with because basically Anywhere that you have the ability to work on projects in an employment scenario, then that's where we work. We typically, because they are very defined paths, we typically do not see teacher prep programs that need to work with us because those are very defined paths. We can go on a tangent about teacher prep programs, but then also healthcare programs. Usually those are less project oriented, more role oriented, and more in person. And so those paths also with clinicals and things like that are also very defined. And so we just don't see many education programs that need us. And so where we do see in healthcare specifically is anything that's like office, management, leadership, less the clinical side and more the other side, operational or leadership side of healthcare. Hope that helps. But other than that, we are in just about everything to some degree. Even, and what's really, really cool to me is I love the idea when we take this, it's not just about preparing for jobs, this is world readiness. The same skills I use to solve problems at work are the same skills I use to solve problems at home. And so whenever we think about this as more than just job training, and this is skill development for a really, really noisy world that we all live in today. And so we have some programs that look at humanities and liberal arts. We have some that are doing general education. My dream is for an institution to say we want to scaffold experiential learning opportunities through an entire learner journey, starting with appropriate and general education and up through graduation. And it's different things. It doesn't have to be all curricular embedded, but to really be very, very intentional. And these are the skills we want students to have mastered and proven mastery of by time they graduate. I think every conversation needs a little bit about AI. And so what I'm seeing as I study what's happening in the labor market with AI is, first off, no one knows what's happening. We have early indicators, but my crystal ball theory is that the intermediate skills of today will become the entry-level skills of tomorrow. And so what any credential in college needs to become is an indicator not just of what's been learned, but of the actual skill mastery. And so it would be an incredible world if when a student graduates with a bachelor degree, that bachelor degree signals knowledge and 2 to 3 years experience. Because what we're seeing right now, early indicators with AI, is there are less and less entry-level jobs for college grads. And so how do we give them that opportunity to be what is going to become the new entry-level job? How do we bridge that gap to make sure they're prepared for that? And so anyone who wants to talk about how do we do this, like wholesale across all learners and get them prepared, like please reach out to me because I would love to have that conversation. Sorry, I had to wrap in AI. It's a Friday afternoon. That was probably heavy. Any other questions, comments, things people are thinking through, brainstorming challenges that you're working with, anything else? Okay, I think folks want 17 minutes back at the end of toward the end of a Friday afternoon. I will also say anyone who wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I actually do a lot of writing specifically around AI and its effects in education. And I love to aggregate what I'm seeing from other folks and just make sure that there are resources out there. And so if anyone, and the importance of making sure we're still humans in an AI era. And so anyone who wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do so. And this was great. Thank you for the great conversation questions. Feel free to reach out to Shannon and myself. Hopefully, our contact information is in our room. If not, we're pretty easy to find. I'll just put my email right here. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.